Welcome to the Bound to be Rich podcast, where I attempt to reverse engineer people who seem to be successful no matter the circumstances so that you can apply those lessons to your own life. I'm your host, Ismail Humet. In this episode, we are joined by Cameron Newell, CEO of Noremac Newell Trading and a very popular day trader. Cameron is most well known for taking $1,000 and turning it into $1 million in just 109 business days, and then $5 million in 256 days. While that may sound unbelievable, it did not come easy. He blew his account a couple times before succeeding. He's also someone who does not claim to be a guru and emphasizes that he is just a normal guy who was actually a Domino's pizza delivery driver before all his trading success. What did he learn that allowed him to finally make millions from trading, and what can we take away to help us become profitable traders too? Let's dive in. Cameron, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
So I've been interviewing traders recently. I've been fascinated by it, and it seems like that's the rage now. Everyone's getting into it. But you specifically caught my attention and a lot of my friends' attentions because you're very relatable. And like you have all this content out there where you say you're not a guru, you're just this normal guy. If you can do it, anybody can do it. So I think people are really drawn to you. And I want to start with that because once you start talking about all the success you've had, you look less relatable. So if you don't mind, I'd like to hear more about what you were doing before. I know I saw some things about like pizza delivery, landscaping, anything that you're willing to get into. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me on. But yeah, so, my life, right? So I guess we can go back to just kind of the very beginning. School was never really a thing for me. Actually, when I was in elementary school, I actually really liked school because I was pretty good at it. I remember that. I remember being good at like math, and I remember being good at, what was it? I guess it doesn't even count because I want to count it. But PE, I was really good at too. I was very athletic. And then I kind of just started to realize, like in 8th and 9th grade, that I just kind of like, I don't know, I didn't really enjoy school. I wasn't really I had no drive for it, like I know when I'm driven, I know when I like something. I know when, I'm really enjoying studying it and really enjoying learning it. I could just tell, and an example would be like, I really loved Madden. At one point when I was like 15, I got so into Madden that I ended up being ranked in the world. I guess looking back on that, I haven't really thought about it until now, but I kind of had that trait of like when I get into something and I'm actually like enjoying it and loving it and driven in it, then I know that I can compete up there with, hopefully some of the best out there is always the goal now. I'm always looking to get better, and I'm by sure not the best, but I continue to make every day better than yesterday. And I hope that you take that motto home with you if you're hearing this. But, I kind of realized that school wasn't for me. And it doesn't mean that I didn't quit. I'm not a quitter. I mean, I went through college, and I went through about 3 years of college. I mean, I got my AA, and then I ended up not really knowing what I wanted to do. And finally, my girlfriend helped me kind of decide that I wanted that she realized that I like business. I like finance. I like to, understand and learn how that sector worked. Right. And it's a lot of learning, and I'm still learning to this day and all that kind of stuff. But that's the key, is always, trying to, get better, and always trying to, learn and always trying to, like I say, learn. And in school, I wasn't interested in learning. I know that I didn't really even, I remember I didn't really even like have that drive or that interest in learning. I was just trying to get through it. And so, then I found, trading, but I guess I can go through my jobs. I don't want to jump too far. So, my jobs consisted of, I've never had a 9 to 5 to this day. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You probably save yourself a lot of stress and heartache. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah. But so my first ever job was like doing some landscaping for an older guy. His name was Mr. Grevstead. And I did, I remember, doing that for like 2 years and thinking that $12 an hour was really good money. And it was. I mean, I was like 15 years old and I was working 4 or 5 hours a day. But, I absolutely, I didn't hate it. But especially in the summer when the bugs were out, I'm not a huge bug fan. And I just remember going through all the apple trees and mowing the lawn. I mean, this guy had a ton of lawn to be mowed. And, at the end of the day, I didn't really enjoy it, but then I moved on and I started to work for, more, I guess, a job, which is Washington National Guest Service. And I did guest service for them for about, I don't know, a year or so. I didn't love it. It probably, I don't know if I love the people that work there. They weren't necessarily the positive vibes that I would have liked. But and then overall, I mean, I just did it to get free golf. That's basically the only reason why I did it. And then, and the last job I ever had was I worked for Domino's Pizza. I was the Domino's Pizza delivery boy for about a year and a half or so. And, that's when I started to trade more and more. And that's when during that time, that's when I lost about half my net worth on Robinhood. Basically just, starting off small, basically just, funding an account with, I remember $100 and then $300 and then it became $500, $1,000. And then I got on SureTrader, $1,500, blew that up in one day and refunded it the same day. I mean, it was becoming like almost a gambling problem. Right. And I remember, going through that, and I remember now the ticker's MGTI, but it was MGI. And that's what I basically lost. I think I lost about $3,200 that day. And I literally bought the top. And now learning and going back on those times, I completely would have done the opposite. Now that I'm educated, now that I've seen charts, now that I've studied the markets long enough, literally it was a perfect parabolic short and then a solid bounce on top of that. And that's exactly what I did with GameStop. It's exactly what I tried to do on Tilray today. It's exactly what Sava did. These are reoccurring, themes and processes that happen throughout the markets. People just get so high and then they get so down and they stop out and they overstop out and then there's a bounce. But I'm not going to go into too much of that. But anyways, basically I found a process that works. And it's funny because I look back on that and that one trade is basically what I told everybody, like I was going to quit. I just told everybody, my friends, that I'm not going to do this anymore. I just can't, No one really knew how bad it was for me, but I just basically was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this to myself. I can't do this to my situation. I can't do this to my family. I didn't want to like ruin my chances of, living where I was going to live in college. And I was getting to that point where financially, I don't know if I could do that anymore. Get to a point where I could live where I was trying to live in college. And I don't know, without ruining my college, my parents luckily helped me throughout college, but I didn't want them to help me for everything. And I don't think they would have. And so, going through that and, looking at, John McAfee and how he's talking about the stock all the time and, all that stuff. And then he kind of just talked about it every day and it just inflated the stock from 30 cents. I believe 7 days later it went to 550. And I think I bought it at 560. It's in my course somewhere. I have the trade in my course that I went over it. And I'll never forget the trade because that's what almost knocked me out. But I told everybody I quit and then no one knew this, but I came back one more time. And I think having my back against the wall, realizing that, I was still watching things and I was like, why can't that be me? Every day I saw something go up and I wasn't trading. I'm like, why can't that be me? Why can't I be in there and sell there? And why can't I short there and cover there? And why can't I just be that person, right? Because someone else did it. It's obvious. It's on the screen. Someone else was able to do that. Someone else was able to buy the bottom because there's always a buyer and a seller. That's how the markets work. And if there isn't, then it's probably halted. But
what you're touching on here, though, is a surprisingly common thing. People think they're going to get rich overnight to get into trading, and I'm sure you've heard this stat where 95% of traders fail.
Yeah.
A common thing is people blow their accounts like multiple times when they first start, but for some reason, the people that are successful like you, they don't give up. And even though you were close to giving up, you kept going. And I find that those people, if you did a stat on those people that didn't give up, I'd bet that the success rates were way higher. So why do you think you had that mental strength? Because everyone goes through those periods where they have a big loss or they blow their account. How did you put that into your mindset to keep going? What was different about how you thought about it?
Um, I mean, I wish there was more research done to understand like what actually kicks people out of the markets and why do they 90% of traders fail. Because and I'm glad you touched on that because I would really, really love to learn that because it would help my teaching a lot, and I wish there was more research done on, is it people over trading? Is it people not studying enough? Is it people too overconfident? Is it someone who just takes all their life savings and just throws it into the market, loses it once, and doesn't give themselves a chance to learn? I really want to get to the bottom of like why 90% of traders fail because there's so much opportunity. And to me, the markets is becoming not obvious, but it's just every day the percentages can be on your side if you have a lot of proper studying. But anyways, I wish that someday that's out there more out there than it is now. But what's different when it happened to me? I don't know. I've never really been a quitter. I've never really been, you have to be smart about life. You have to be, even though I lost half my net worth, I still had half the amount. And I knew that, I knew going into it that there's no way in my mind that I would lose everything because it's just not how I work. And mentally, I knew that I was tough enough. I remember starting the $1,000 to $1 million account challenge. And at that point, I wasn't really profitable. I mean, I started to pick up some strategies in 2007. It was August 31st, 2017. And that account challenge, turning 1,000 to $1 million is where, I started basically building my confidence. But here's the thing. I blew up a ton of accounts. And then, I took some time off and I started to study, right? And then back against the wall, having that feeling of back against the wall, I kind of just was like, you know what? I can't give up. I refuse to give up, because the thing is, it's almost like how much I hated school. I didn't want to give up because I knew the plan B was school and I wasn't going to do it. I mean, I was doing it. I was in school, but like, I just knew that there wasn't a job that I really liked out there. And I knew that the degree really wouldn't be used if I used it. I'd seen it so many times from, a lot of people that I knew. And I was just like, what is better than trading? What is better than literally waking up, being wherever you can in the world, wherever you want to be in the world, not having a boss to tell you what to do, and have an unlimited salary based upon the knowledge that you have in your brain. Your salary is based upon how much knowledge and how much awareness you have in the stock market. There is no going around that. The smartest people in the world are the ones that are the most successful, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be financially either. It can be, someone like Ed Milet, even though he's financially successful, or, so on and so forth. But just having that drive. But I'm trying to figure out like what's different. And that's a hard question. What's different in my brain than someone else's? And I just feel like it's, not giving up, trying to be somewhat, smart and educated about every decision that you make. Realizing that losses happen, realizing that you're going to get down in life, and realizing that there's going to be lows and highs throughout life. And it's got to be your best to keep the highs uptrending and the lows, you wash them away and you just learn from them, right? Because everybody's life has something that they learn from. And, some person's life might have more than they learn from than others, whether it be, you just getting kicked out of class, or whether it be you being in detention for 3 days. And, we all have things we learn that are either right or wrong in your mind or in someone else's. But the thing is, you have to just come back every day and say, hey, you know what, I messed up, and own up to messing up. The biggest thing is telling yourself, you know what, and getting the ego out of the way. I learned from the very beginning, get the ego out of the way. I learned from everyone, and I have no problem admitting it. A lot of people say they only learn from one person, and I don't buy it. I think they're just doing that to say, this is my mentor and I want to help him in his business. But I think that in order to be successful in any shape in life, you can't learn from just one person. I'm not saying you can't be successful from learning from just one person, but I don't think you can take it. And I think it's extremely hard to just learn from one person and be successful. But I think you can take it 10 steps higher when you learn from hundreds or thousands of people that have proven themselves in that sector or industry. And that's kind of just what I've taken and I still take to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we could dive into trading really deep, but I think people can just get your course and learn all about that. I'm really fascinated by your mindset. Like we're kind of talking about now, what sets you apart. And you mentioned that $1 million challenge. I have these notes here that you turned $1,000 into $1 million in 109 business days. And then you turned it into $5 million in 256 business days. And what's unique about you is that it's like totally transparent. You publish YouTube videos every day after the market close. You post the results. It's verified. But you just said something really interesting before. You said when you lost and you lost half your account and you were at rock bottom, your back was against the wall, you started the $1,000 $2 million challenge. Now, what makes you feel like you can do that when you lost half your account, your back is against the corner? A lot of people wouldn't say, I'm going to do $1 million challenge, right?
Yeah, that's very true. And I kind of just set that bar so high because in my mind, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've seen traders do something similar. Like I've never seen someone do 1,000 to $1 million, so I wanted to set that bar. And by the way, that challenge was no margin as well. I'm not using 2-to-1, 3-to-1 or any of that, but, and we can go over leverage later, but, so yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I wanted to set the bar high because I feel like when you set the bar high, it makes you focus on the little things more. And I know that's kind of weird, but like when I set the bar high, I wasn't just like, and I was doing it publicly too. Like I announced it to all my followers. I didn't have very many at the time, but I did that to hold myself accountable. It's so easy to hide behind a screen and just not be accountable and make stupid trades and just click buttons all day. But when you hold yourself accountable, whether it be green, red, or break even every single day, it's important to hold yourself accountable because, you can sit here and say, oh, it's okay to do this today. And it's okay to do that today. And it's okay to make it a bad day today, But when you hold yourself accountable in front of people, you want to lead as an example. I've always been that way. I want to lead as an example. And I remember setting that bar so high to where like every day I was just so focused. I was like, okay, I've lost this amount of money. I'm not doing this anymore. My back's against the wall. And what changed for me, I remember this, is what changed for me was just pick and choosing stocks. The reality is you can choose from 10,000 plus stocks every day. You have that opportunity. You as a retail trader can say, hey, I can trade anything that I want as long as I have a brokerage and, you can buy and sell whatever you want. And when you have that freedom and that opportunity and you're sitting and watching stocks go up and down every day, you're literally watching money in front of you that you can collect if you're smart enough, right? And so I saw that, and that's what drove me. And I was like, if I was smart enough to get myself down here and get them in here, then I can make a little bit of profit, and maybe I can put some food on the table and a roof over my head. And I kept doing that over and over in my head, and I'm like, you know what? Like every day I saw some other opportunity, and I wasn't trading at the time. I'm talking about when I wasn't trading and I lost half my net worth and I just quit for a little bit. And I just kept seeing that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and then even just seeing the MGT bounce, the one that I lost $3,200 or $3,000 on or something like that. Even seeing that bounce go from 250 to like 330, I was like, wow, what if I got in at 260 and sold at 3? You could have done that. The opportunity was there. It's just, how am I going to be smart enough to get myself to do that? And what happens is I kept studying charts and patterns and volume and time and sales and how social media was creating opportunity of trades and how level 2 creates opportunity with trades and how sector and momentum creates opportunity with trades and how, depending on what's hot, if it's the electrical vehicle sector or the wheat sector, always learning how that's churning. And I've learned that over time. But setting that bar high and just creating that mindset of like, of an extreme goal, I felt like I just couldn't, I couldn't give up, and I couldn't, think big picture like that, because I've tried that. I've tried thinking I want money now. And that's why I got Share Trader, and I got 6-to-1 leverage. I found out with $1,500, and I got into a $10,000 position. I remember getting into, it's like a $10 stock, and it moved like 60 cents, and I lost my account in like 10 minutes. And I'm like, well, that was fun. There goes $1,500. I'm trying to make a lot of money quick. And I'm telling you, I try and teach everything of what I used to do, and try and help people to understand that I've been through that. And I did, and the craziest part is I did it again the next day. I got in a 6-to-1 trade, and this one took an hour, but it stopped me out. The margin stopped me out because it ran out of cash, and I was out again. And in 2 days, I'm down, another $3,000. And it's hard to remember the time frames exactly on, Share Trader was right before I lost half my net worth, and an MGT trade was the trade that was my last trade, and I'll never forget that trade. But I was in the mindset that whole time of like, oh, why can't I just make like $5,000 right now, like, or make $10,000 right now, or make $1,000 right now, like it'd be so nice, and then I could go tell my family that I did this, and it's like, and then having that mentality of I want it now is, in my opinion, is never gonna work. So setting that 1,000 to 1 million, I'm like, there's no way I can do that in 1 day or 5 days or 100 days. Even doing that 109 days, I was like, wow, like I even impressed myself. I was like, I can't believe I did that. The key was just focus on every day. Even today, I realized I've had a hot green streak, and I realized I'm up an insane amount of money, but I just focus on the day in front of me. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm living in like, holy crap, look how much I've done. I don't live like that. I just live every day of, okay, it's like when you're up at the professional, hitters, they're up at the plate. They just think that they're one at bat. And most common, saying you might hear Russell Wilson or some of these professional athletes is I take one day at a time. And I can't preach that enough. Take it one day at a time. Be your best self one day at a time. Don't think 20 days down the road and then take trades and things like that. And try and put yourself in your shoes 20 days down the road and trade like that. Trade like who you are right now, and acknowledge it and get the ego out of the way.
Yeah, I think it requires a lot of patience, right? To wait for those setups. You mentioned if you got in at this level and got out at that level, you would have made money. It requires patience, which is harder than it sounds. And I think I saw a picture. I don't know if you still have this, but you have a sign that you have in front of your trading setup. And I think I have it here. It says, stay patient. You only need 3 to 4 A+ setups a day. Stay patient. You got this. Mm-hmm. Why do you have that there? Do you still have that there? Like, is it that important to be constantly reminded about it?
It's very important. And yeah, I mean, it's still there. It's actually it should be there. I think it just fell down, but yeah, it's right here. Yeah, I mean, I have it there for a reason, and it's because I was going through a stretch of time, where, and that's exactly what I was going to talk to you about in the account challenges. What I did with the account challenge, that first $1,000 to $1 million, is I started to focus on just out of 10,000 stocks, 1 or 2 stocks every day. And I go, man, that doesn't really fit what I like. And I'm like, literally like, I don't want to lose money. And now I'm thinking, how am I going to get into a stock and not lose money, rather than how am I going to get into a stock and make money? And I'm like, okay, this looks good. This looks good. Now I have 2 or 3 on my radar, and I'm like, okay, this one seems to be like I could get in, and it'd be super low risk, and maybe make some money, and maybe try and figure it out and maybe be successful with it. But my biggest turnaround was just like focusing on like looking at a lot of different stocks every day, but only focusing on what worked and what I felt comfortable with. And I say that to everyone. Like, if you could just find, and there's so many stocks out there. I'm sure there's one stock, if you looked with a scanner, with social media, and, have all these watch lists that you're looking at as well, and start to dial in a couple of stocks and just really hone in and say, okay, and that's my perfect setup. And then you can take it. But that's the key, is like you said, being patient was something that I realized. And over the past month or 2, I've been really succeeding at, is waiting. I can't tell you how hard it was to just watch GameStop fall and be patient for that trade. But that right there was one of my most proud trades, because it's so hard to watch a stock fall and have this setup, and that same setup was the same as MGT, but it's so hard to watch a stock fall and know when the bottom is, because you really don't. But there's some criteria that you can create, that you can build, that can help you find the bottom. It's not about exact bottoms. It's about finding estimates, because you're never going to nail bottoms and you're never going to nail tops every single time. It's just not going to work. But your goal is to just kind of catch the meat of the move, right? And so with GameStop, I can't tell you how hard it was to be patient watching it go up to 460 and down to 112 all in one day, all within an hour and a half. There was so much emotion flowing throughout me, whether it be long or short. And I know that I'm going to size the F up on this thing. I know I am, because I'm licking my chops for this huge sell-off that I'm waiting for. Realistically, I was like, coming in that day, I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was in my mind setting up the day and how I was going to prepare myself, because I knew that day could be a very big day, like it was. But I knew the opportunity was there. It's going to be how well I can execute. So I was up for 3 hours trying to prepare my day in my head, and basically, and then realizing that I'm going to size up a lot on that stock. In my head, mentally, I said, maybe we get to 170, and if so, I'm all in, right? But it's a criteria that it's not just like I'm all in. Guys, this is years and years of studying and years of time. But I knew that this setup was one of my highest percentage plays and one of the biggest percentage payouts, with one of the most liquidity setups that you could get in the markets. So all those things lined up, the stars aligned. I'm like, 170. The thing went to 112. How did I average at 144 across 3 different accounts? Was, and by the way, it bounced to 320 an hour later. But how do I be patient enough to get myself to do that? It's basically, seeing that sign and just waiting for those opportunities, because I realized that if you're not patient, you're just going to lose money. I realized that if I'm not patient, I'm just stabbing at the dark at things. And I'm just like, why would I waste my time throughout the day, every day, stabbing at the dark, rather than just waiting for the setup to come to you? And that's the biggest thing, is waiting for the setup to come to you that works, and then executing the trade. It's not the other way around. It's not like, and a lot of people can't, maybe not be able to relate to this, or maybe they can. But if you see a stock go from 460 down to 112, you're either long at 340, you're long at 280 and out 290, and mentally you're long at 200 and out 220, and you're drained, you're gassed. Well, I waited for one setup that entire day. I know someone who made over $1 million short. Obviously, I did well on the long. And you just prepare yourself for that moment. But I realized that patience is a very, very, one of the most important things in trading, because if you're not patient, then you will be punished. You will just be destroyed. And reading that sign and having it in bold and seeing that in front of me, I don't necessarily need it as much anymore. But there was a stretch where I needed that up front and center to say, hey, you need to slow down. You need to calm down. You're always trading your best when you're only trading 2 to 3 to maybe even just one setup a day.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get in trouble making boredom trades. Like they have a hard time just sitting there. And it's funny that you kind of came full circle. Like you lost 3,000 on that MGT or whatever that stock was trade. And, a year or 2 years later, that same setup comes up. You learned your lesson, and now you made $1 million in a day. So it's constantly learning and applying what you learn. And I feel like when you lose money, the lessons get burned into you a lot. You learn it a lot quicker.
Wait, 100%, 100% the truth, 100%.
But if you had given up, right, you would have just lost 3,000. It would have been over. You wouldn't have been able to make $1 million in a day. So the point is to keep going. So that's why I like the mindset that you have. And I think from watching you, it seems like you have 2 main strategies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you focus on sympathy plays and small caps. Can you confirm if that's true and why that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, sympathy plays are a very, very strong part of my core strategies, because, whether it be electrical vehicle sector and watching, I'll never forget, and I'll learn from this. And that's the thing is BLNK. I remember thinking, okay, Tesla's, up big. They need a place to charge. Electrical vehicles are obviously the new theme because Tesla's up so big, so quick. And I started to realize people are probably going to start to chase the electrical vehicle sector. And what do you know? there's things blowing up left and right in the electrical vehicle sector. BLNK, FUV, Solo, KNDI went on a run. I mean, we can go on and on. But I mean, the thing is, there's like what I call the lead runner, and whether it be an intraday sympathy play or whether it be what I'm talking about the electric vehicle sector, it was BLNK still going. And I remember looking at it like I think it was like $3, and now it's up to 60. And I was going to take a long term position in that because I'm like, I believe that electrical vehicles will be the future. I don't know how fast, I don't know when, but they need to have a charger, and I don't think that's really been, you know, invested in, and obviously I missed out. But another stock I can remember is AMD. I remember trading it at $1.75, and now it's up to over 90. I'll never forget these trades and these setups because someday I will be one of those traders that's in at $2 and out at 100 in my long-term portfolio, with long-term cap gains. Someday, I want to get. I mean, the best I've done is Tilray. I'm in at 642 and it ran to 77, but now it just got slammed and destroyed. But I'm constantly adjusting, and whether it be intraday, intra-week, or multi-year, I'm learning every day different stocks, how they can run and how they can fall. And the sympathy plays are a very, very strong thing to learn because you can almost predict what's coming in the future by seeing the lead runner show you the path and show you, okay, there's people willing to pay for that sector, and that's how much they're willing to pay for. Let's see if it can get spread across the rest of the sector. And you can already see the blueprint. Now it's up to you to take advantage of the rest of the stocks that are behind it. They're kind of hidden behind closed doors, and you got to figure out which ones are going to run and which ones don't, because they don't all run the same. But then I look for volatility. I trade volatility and liquidity every day. Tilray was down 50+% today. I traded it. Not necessarily the best trade in the world, but I traded it because it was so liquid, because it was so volatile. And OCGN, another one that I today we grossed over $350,000 on, and it's because it's been volatile, it's been liquid, and I've seen that set up so many times. I focus on those, and I would say I mainly focus on these days the most amount of volatility with the most amount of liquidity that I can. Because when you see stocks go, intraday they bounce 30, 50, 70% on immense amount of liquidity, I'm preparing myself for the future to size up and size up and size up. Eventually, I'll probably get to the point where, with my size, if all goes to plan, I'll just be trading blue chips, right? And I'll be trading them, and I'll be trading the washouts on blue chips and waiting for, the Tesla washes and things like that. Or maybe an Amazon wash. But that's a long ways down the road. Right now, I'm just working on, just trying to trade the most volatile names. And the key is volatility. What do I mean by that? I mean the stocks that can go up and down by big amount of percentages with a lot of volume every day. And those stocks I focused on the most, and I always, always, always study those ones the most because they can pay you out the fastest, because they can be the most predictable, and because they're a lot of times the most liquid. And those three things are very important to the way I trade because, OCGN reality is, yesterday GameStop, right? I was up over 50% on I was up about 20% on my position in 4 minutes. And it was a big position on GameStop. And I could have taken it off and made a huge chunk of change. I didn't take it off. And then I learned my lesson again. And this time I took some off, but I still got crushed on the backside. So today on OCGN, I said, I'm not going to make that same mistake. And in about 8 minutes, I was up, 25%. So that's kind of what I look for, is things that can pay off quickly. And those I think are the most valuable for anyone. But it's not like I'm just trading those setups because right now it's really hot. There's a lot of volatile stocks out there. There's a lot of bounces. There's a lot of short squeezes. But when the market slows down, you'll see me start to swing trade stocks for a couple hours, maybe even intraday or overnight. But right now, there's just too much going on, and I'm just trading the most volatile sectors and taking my 10, 20, 30, 40% and getting out.
Do you find that that's riskier for newer people? And why do you not seem to be a big fan of options?
So I do think that, the most volatile stocks obviously are the most risky, especially for newer traders, because you have so much emotion that I don't forget about, but it's becoming less and less a part of me. I'm more and more trading like a robot these days. But in the emotional side of things, when people are in and out, especially when they're in with too much size, they get too emotional. And that's how traders make their money, is people getting too emotional. And when you get too emotional, you can really start to make really poor decisions. And that's why GameStop went from 460 down to 112, is because people were making very, 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 very poor decisions on a mass scale. But those they happen all the time. I mean, I say those setups happen 2-3 times a year, maybe as much as 4 or 5, especially in these markets. But yes, I will say they are extremely dangerous for newer traders, but they're also extremely rewarding. And also, if there isn't, the more risk you have, the more reward there is. Whether you're trading the more volatile stocks, there's more risk, but there's more reward. Whether you're sizing up a lot, there's more risk, but there's more reward. And you have to work on like creating that risk and reward, and how you're going to find the happy medium that works for you.
I totally agree with your whole mission and what you're saying with helping people. And I think anyone can learn trading, right? It's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. You learn the patterns, you study. The hardest part is the mental aspect that you just touched on, the psychology. And I feel like maybe you just learn that through experience. I don't know. It seems to be what everyone goes through. But having said all that, I also think you're really good at building a social following, like your Discord community, creating content for social media. For people that are like into that and want to grow community, do you have any advice there?
I will say the most probably basic response, but it's the most important, and it is being consistent. Being consistent every day. Just creating content every day, whether it be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Over time, if you're consistent and don't let your guard down, and that's what I do in trading. I always wake up at 5:30. I'm consistent. I'm always here for you guys. I'm always here at my trading station every single day. There's no excuse. I mean, there is an excuse. I don't have to get up, and I could just sleep. But my life is more important than sleep. I see bigger things in my life than just. I feel like sleeping is not productive. I mean, it's important to get good sleep, but there's a fine line between productivity and sleep and productivity in life. And you have to always marry the two, and figure out, how you're going to meet in the middle.
Yeah, I think I've seen stories if you like getting out of bed at 2 a.m. because you're so pumped to prepare for the day ahead. Like that's the level of commitment it takes to really be successful. And a lot of people want to do the minimum effort and then wonder why they don't make it. But I also am curious. I see, like we talked about you talk about how you're a normal guy. You're not a guru. You're transparent. But it is the internet after all, and there's always haters online. So I'm gonna hand this off to you, but I want to give a quick story. Like for example, I saw even like a TikTok video where people are like, "Oh, why do you have a window AC unit?" And it made me think of like one of my mentors, very wealthy guy. And I remember I was making fun of him, laughing one time. I'm like, "Hey, why are you driving a Prius, man? Why don't you get like a nice Mercedes? It looks cooler." And he's like, "You know what looks cool? My bank account." So I'd love to hear you talk about dealing with haters and how you think about money, because people think, "Oh, you have 5 million, you're just blow it." But how do you think about haters and money? I guess is what I'm getting at.
It's a good question. Yeah. So to start with haters, the thing is, and I've realized this, guys. If people truly know me, they know that at the end of the day, I am going to do my best to hopefully create, successful students. Now, it's not always going to work out that way. Now, not only that, but people know, who I am, and, what I stand for, and my morals and things like that. And, people think that it's easy to just go on social media and just type a bunch of stuff and say, "Hey, you're going to try and hurt me and tear me down." Or they say, "Hey, I don't." A lot. A couple of the most common is, "Hey, I don't believe what you're making. Hey, I don't believe you turned 1,000 over 11 million. hey, I don't believe any of this. I believe you're a fraud. I believe you're just fake. This is all paper trading. And the reality is, first off, all those people, if they actually put the time in to learn from me and just spend a month with me, watch my YouTubes, watch my, every day I'm in chat, start to put all the pieces together, and you start to realize how extremely, extremely hard it would be to fake everything that I'm doing, right? Everything that I'm doing. And on top of that, every now and again I'll kind of get the haters going, and I'll make some live trades, and I'll lose like, I don't know, $40 or something to show that it's a real account. And I've done this at TD, I've done this at E-Trade, and now I'm at Trade Zero. And probably continue to do it. But if you spend some time, I know the people that are hating on me are the ones that literally haven't spent any time with me. They're just seeing me and they're like, hey, this guy's just fake. Or, they're either just, they just choose not to believe it. And that's the thing is like, I realize like I've even, it's crazy to think, but I've even learned from paper traders, people that said they were trading real money and then later found out they were actually trading paper money. And they got caught. I'm not going to say any names. It's a very common name, but and so I can learn from everyone, and I've never made any excuses about learning from everyone. And that's the thing is like some of these people, they just think like, I don't know if it's thinking too small, but they think just immediately like when they see something crazy, it's not possible. It's like, well, when we walked on the moon, did you think it was impossible until it was proven? Is that like, which person were you? The person that said, hey, I think we can do it, or no, that's impossible. And you have to decide which way you're going to choose in life. Are you going to be the person that just says everything that seems unbelievable, I'm just not going to believe it? Or are you going to like let that inspire you and try and do it yourself? Now maybe you try and walk on the moon. And even if they were faking it, then why don't you prove them wrong? Or that's just always how I've been. I've always been that person to just prove people wrong time and time and time and time again, because the reality is it's not impossible, or it's not possible, or what am I trying to say? It's not impossible unless you can prove it possible. You know what I mean? I'm kind of butchering that, but it's something's always impossible until proven possible. That's what I'm
Exactly. Yeah, it goes back to the mindset, man. It's all about the mindset. Like that
Yeah.
belief you said, where people don't believe it when they see it. It says a lot about them. Meanwhile, you have Cam, like literally back against the corner, and believes he can turn 1,000 into 1,000,000 and makes it happen. So that mindset, that belief, is a big part of it.
Yeah. And one thing I will say is like Elon Musk, for an example, wealthiest person in the world right now. Did he think he was ever going to be worth 200 billion? I'm sure in the back of his mind, he thought he was going to be the wealthiest person in the world. Maybe it's in the front of his mind. But whatever the case, does anybody think there's ever going to be a trillionaire out there? They're probably going to hear a lot of no's. Will it happen? I'm sure it will. It's just a matter of, how hard that person's going to work, how smart they are, how educated they can be, or do you think that there's ever, going to be someone who, runs for 4 days straight and doesn't ever stop? I'm sure it sounds impossible, and I'm sure it is impossible right now, but I'm sure someday someone might do it. Like, you can't have the mindset of just, oh, that's not possible. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, there's just no way. It's never been done. It's never even kind of been done. It doesn't. Creating your own possible and your own reality is what it's about. Letting people tear you down and say, hey, you can't do this, or hey, you're fake, or hey, that's just not possible or not true. It just, I don't know. Like, those people are the ones that I don't want in my life. They're the ones that I want people to push me and motivate me and take me to the next level and say, hey, you can do that. And I have some of those friends in my life that want, more of them. And, as I get older, I'm only 26. As I get older, I'm sure I'm going to build out my network. But again, right now I'm so focused on trading that, it's just my number one goal is just continue to get better and better at trading until hopefully someday I pass Warren Buffett. And then what was your second question there?
Yeah, it was about how you think about money, like being frugal, and like what is your strategy with profits? Do you like take it out and put into long term investments? Like, how do you think about money? I guess in general.
Yeah, lately, man, I'm not gonna lie, money, it's been pretty insane. It's not even reality anymore. I'll say that. Like, I'm doing things that I mean, I'm making, doctor's salaries in one day. It's just not reality. It really isn't. I mean, I don't even know how to say it. And it's been pretty insane. And it's like, I don't know. I definitely have a plan for what I do with my money, but lately it's like, geez, like I am doing things at such a progressive rate, and I'm like going a lot faster than I thought I was going to, and now I'm like, geez, like I'm making the kind of money that I need to figure out, like, you know, do I buy commercial real estate? Like, I don't know. Like, I've been game planning that out for the past couple of years, because my goal is always to be in this position. It's just over the past month, it's been really, really drastic uptick in my trading career, and it's all good. I'm going to continue to progress and continue to get better, but you know, what I've been doing is I always, so when I started my $1,000 to $30 million account challenge, I did 1,000. And then once I got, I think, like over to like 500,000, I had $100,000 trading account. And then when I got to 1 million, I bumped it up to like every $100,000 that I made, I'd bump my buying power up 25,000. So if I got a 600,000, it'd be 125. If I got 700,000, it'd be 150. If I got to 800,000, 175, 900,000, 200, et cetera, et cetera. But I always wanted to feel like there's that pit in my stomach that I learned from when I first started trading, being on SureTrader. I remember this especially, where like if I had this kind of bad pit in my stomach, then now I realize, but not, I didn't know then that that's too much size. I'm trading with too much size. I didn't know that until after about 2 years. I was like, well, that feeling, I'm like, oh yeah, that's way, I don't feel comfortable with that kind of size. So I kind of feel that out. If I get that pit in my stomach, then I might not. I might just pull the whole $100,000 instead of the 75,000 um, into my bank account. Depending on if I'm like so, But then now I'm at. I calculate after today, but I'm over 12 million in profits from that 1,000. But now I raise my buying power. I have it to $1 million, but now I just recently raised it to 1.25, and now I'm considering raising it to 1.5. Like for every $1 million that I make, I might raise it 250,000. That's kind of like been what I've been doing. But yeah, I just pull my profits and go from there. I bought a house. I bought a house cash.
Yeah, recently, right? Congratulations.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I bought a house cash, and I'll never forget the seller was like, "Wait a minute, like you're 26 years old, you were a pizza delivery boy. How is this all adding up?" So I had to send
did he ask you what you did?
Yeah, well, and I don't necessarily blame them, because they've lived in the house for 35 years, and they want to make sure that they're not going to get screwed in the end. They had plenty of other offers, though. I mean, there were 16 offers made on the house, and it went to the moon. But at the end of the day, I knew what I was doing when buying the house. I knew, that now I have an asset. I've never had an asset before, and with the kind of money I'm making, I have to figure out smart assets to put my money in. And I do a lot of real estate studying. People don't know that, but I actually study a lot of real estate. A lot of Grant Cardone. A lot of I study a lot of Tony Robbins, a lot of Ed Milet. I kind of create my social media like surrounding myself around these big time successful names, and that's another key, is surround yourself around successful people. It doesn't have to be financially, but in any way. I follow athletes that I look up to. I follow weightlifters that I look up to. I surround myself on my social media around the people that are my role models. And doing that has also increased my intelligence as well. Because basically it's like a little world that I do like late at night. I'll go on social media for my own personal sake, and I'll just look at all the motivational content that they have or everything that they've learned over their career, and see what they've done and use that to better myself. And in real estate, I've learned a lot about real estate over the past 2 years because real estate is a very important thing to learn. I don't necessarily think that I'll be a huge investor in it because over time I know stocks always pay better than real estate. But the thing is, it's not like I'm not going to get into it because real estate is an asset. People will always need a home to live in. There's always things that are hot in the stock market and things that get graphics cards that can be better and better, but I can't really think of something that was going to be better than a home because you always have to have a place to live. No matter how old you're going to be, there's always got to be an asset that you're living in. And that then creates value.
You definitely, I mean, you're making a ton of money. Real estate's going to be like a good place to park it. You're not going to make more in real estate, but I think as you make more and more money trading, you're going to run into like liquidity problems. It's going to be harder to trade a lot of stocks. So you're kind of restricted in a certain sense there. But it sounds like you're doing the right thing. And I think what you touched on with surrounding yourself with the right people, like back in the day, it was just people who were physically around you, like your schoolmates, your neighbors. Now there's no excuse. You hit it right in the head, man. You could follow all these billionaires, multimillionaires, and learn from them for free. There's no excuse anymore. People are like listening to Ariana Grande singing about lollipops in the car when they could be listening to a billionaire talking on a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So it's no excuse in my mind anymore. But there are two questions that I wrap up every show with, and I can't wait to ask you these as well. We talked about a lot of different things here. You've clearly had a lot of success. People relate to you because you don't like put yourself way above everybody. You're very relatable. And we talked about how you were like a Domino's pizza delivery guy, but you still kind of had this dream. So I'm curious, can you tell me about young Cameron? And like, if I interviewed people around you at that time when you were younger, how would they describe you? Would they say, "Oh, I always knew he'd make it," or would they be shocked?
No, they're completely 100% shocked.
Why'd you laugh?
No, yeah, for sure, and I have no problem admitting that. My closest friends, they always, they don't always, but I didn't think I could ever see. Well, that's not true. I always have goals, but I seem to overachieve them. And I don't know why that is, but I'm just thinking. But anyways, I'm not gonna go down that road again. But so yeah, I mean, my I remember, in high school, I wasn't getting the best grades. All my friends were getting better grades than me. I kind of just, I was kind of just playing video games, and I wasn't doing. School was kind of just there. It's not like you could. I wasn't like the only thing that like people would talk about was especially when I was younger, is like they thought that I could be like maybe an athlete of some sorts, but like I was just an average Joe, man. Like I got a 2 point, I think it was 2.3 in high school. Like it was nothing insane. I just got through it. My friends got 3.4s and 3.7s, and some got 4.0s, and I'm just sitting here like, I'm just kind of moseying my way through my high school, career. It's not like, I know some people, right, that they're talked about in high school. They're like, oh, this guy's going to go pro, or this guy's going to, be a Harvard, crazy just scientist. You get those people that when I'm sure you remember that, right? Like in your high school, was there people that
Of course. And I feel like this is the magic of Cameron, right? This is why you're so relatable. You don't even pretend. You're like, nah, they wouldn't believe it. And I think that's why people are so drawn to you. And that's what makes it so interesting to understand why you made it. Because a lot of people are like nodding their heads. They're playing video games. They're not good in school. They don't like school. They want to succeed like you did. So like, what's the difference? I don't know if you can even ever answer that. It's just, it's in you.
I've always had that competitive nature in me. Like in sports, I've always had competitiveness, in video games, whatever it is, I've always had that competitiveness. So I think that's a big piece, is like I'm competitive, and now like you have to like I am living my life, like And before it was a life of what my parents said. Now it's a life of what I get to do. They don't get to tell me what to do anymore. And so I was living my parents kind of like, which I love my parents and they drove me in so many ways. I've learned a lot from them. Whether it be, good or bad, but what I want to say is that, I've learned a lot along the way and trying to find like what differs me. I was going on a path there and, I don't know. I got to a point where I was like, my parents no longer tell me what to do. And I think that was a big thing too. Because I'm like, okay, now what? I've lived a life of like, you got to go to school, you got to get up in the morning, you got to eat breakfast, lunch, make sure to have some discipline, make sure to look nice. Now all of a sudden I'm in the real world and I'm like, all of a sudden it's mute. Everything's gone. I live with my girlfriend. Like I have my life to live now. It's like all of a sudden it went from like parents and life that I'm supposed to live, and this is what they want to see out of me, go to school. My dad really wanted me to go to the military. My mom was like, just make sure to go to school and be driven because she's a doctor, or she was a doctor. She's probably the smartest person I might have ever met, but I'm not. And the craziest thing is I'm not, she's my mom, but I'm adopted. So she's not my blood mom. But I learned so much. I mean, I remember I saw books on the table. She was taking care of me, putting a food on the table and a roof over my head. There was books on the table, and she was getting her doctorate. And there's books on the table piled up, on the pool table, across the entire pool table, about, I would say, like 3 feet high. She was writing, and she had to write all these books that she was doing. It was insane. I've never seen anything like that. And I knew for sure that that was like confirmation. Nope, not going to happen.
But it goes to your point, like you got to find what you're passionate about. Like that's what she was passionate about. And you're passionate about trading. Everybody has to find that for themselves.
Exactly. And so, realizing that and kind of living my life and now just being on my own, I'm like, now I have my own life. And like, I don't have a 9 to 5 to like just get brainwashed in. I don't have like, oh, I got to do this at this time and a meeting at this, and every day it's a meeting and this, and I got to reply to that person and blah, blah, blah. And then tomorrow I'm super busy and the next day I'm busy, and okay, fine, I can take a little bit of time off. Maybe I should go to lunch that day. All of a sudden the whole week went by and it's just like gone. And I don't those people I think have it a lot harder than me. Okay. I'm no question in my mind. But the thing is, like, when I'm looking back on that, I'm like, I'm trying to get to that point where like, every day I make myself, better, and, going through that and realizing that this is now my life, and like, it's no one else's life. I can do whatever. And I can literally probably do whatever I want. Before I was obviously limited to whatever, financial problems, but now it's like, I'm living in a life where I have the financial freedom to do literally whatever I want. But that's the thing is, like, when you get to that point, you also realize like how life is so important. Just the little things in life, creating friends, creating relationships, sleeping better, creating a proper diet, good health, the little things that you kind of like didn't care about when you were a kid. Just yesterday, I went skiing, right? And I was thinking, I literally had this thought go through my head. And it was, seeing this little kid on the mountain, like I flashed back to me for a second. And I was like, my old self would be like, oh, I'm kind of scared going down the mountain. Oh, I'm kind of, going down this mountain and it's fun and I got the skis on and I'm kind of cold and let's get home. Now I was up there and I was just like literally just like looking up and seeing the stars and seeing how beautiful like the planet is and the earth, and just like literally like just took a deep breath, and I'm just like taking everything in, because you only get one life. When you're younger, things fly by. When you're older, you have the choice to do what you want. You can't let life fly by in terms of someone else. In my mind, that's just the way I live. You got to create your own life and create your own opportunities, and do that for yourself, because you deserve it. And, at the end of the day, taking life and looking back on it, you appreciate a lot more when you don't have any stress of, what creates more percentages of divorces than anything else, and that's finance.
That's such a perfect setup for my final question. So let me jump in here. You
Yeah.
talked about a lot of things, a lot of money things specifically, but obviously a rich life is not just about money, and you started kind of touching on that right now. So the last question I ask everybody is, what is a rich life to you?
Um, a rich life to me is good health, good friends, good family, and being surrounded by people that you can learn from. I don't care if I don't care if it's learning how to change oil, or learning how to build a house, or learning how to create, or, being better at, what else, like being better at, lifting weights, or being better at managing time, or being better at, just creating social environments, or being better with your time management, or being better with relationships, or just being better at motivating and inspiring people, being better at, I could go on and on, right? But life is not, and I'm speaking from a place where I can comfortably say it now. Life is not all about money. Okay, I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, life is about making every day better in every aspect that you can in a healthy manner. You know, I focus a lot on my life, especially as of late, and I focus a lot on just, managing my time, creating happiness for myself. At one point, happiness was money, and now, obviously, it's like it's fun. It's a good adrenaline rush, but I get more enjoyment now out of just like, just creating health for myself, and creating friends, and creating memories. Memories is one of the biggest things. Creating memories with people that you'll never forget, and just know that, I know that there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, I disagree. Well, I hope that everyone listening gets to a point where I'm at, where they're just financially well off and doing great for themselves. And you'll go back and realize, you start to take life for what it is. And I'm not stuck in an office having 50 emails flying over me. I can take a breather. I can look at life, like even right now it's snowing, and just appreciate, what's going on around me. And it's very, very important to have everything clicking on all cylinders before you start focusing on money. Money is subsidiary to just success in anything, I think, in life, because money is something that, would I have thought that 20 years ago there could be someone that could just stream and make millions and tens of millions of dollars just gaming? No, I would have never thought that. The thing is, if you're passionate about what you do, money will follow. It doesn't have to be trading. It can just be, maybe you're passionate about motivating people, motivational speaker. In the beginning, you might start out like an ant, but after 30 years go by and you're still doing motivational speaking and you're still driven, that just loving what you do should take care of the rest. So, make sure whatever you do in life you love and you're passionate about, and the rest should take care of itself, especially over time if you're consistently passionate about it over a 10, 20, 30-year span. I think that's a big thing. But I mean, money is great. It creates I will say life is a lot less stressful now. But
You're not stressed when you throw $1 million in the GameStop?
I'm not gonna lie. People ask me that, even my close friends. They're like, "How the hell? Like, you have to be?" Then they're always like, "Are you so stressed all the time?" And I'm like, "No, because I try and trade in a point where I don't have that pit in my stomach where I am stressed." And sure, I'm not gonna lie. When the stock's bouncing around, $5 every millisecond, and you can't even see what's going on the time and sales, and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars flashing up and down in seconds. Yeah, it might be a little stressful, but it's all relative. before I would have been stressed at 10,000, then 100,000, then hopefully in the next 6 months to a million, so on and so forth. So it's all relative, but the most important thing of trading is not P&L. Don't look at how much money I'm making ever. I just do it to be transparent. Always, always, always look at my percentages, because that's all that matters, because everyone can relate to percentage. Very, very, very few can relate to my P&L.
Man, I think anyone that spends time like watching your content or hanging out in your Discord group, and hopefully even after listening to this conversation, they can sense the passion that you have for helping people, like trying to share your knowledge and help other people get better. I think that's not that common of a thing as it should be. So I'll include links to everything in the show notes, but is there anything specifically, Cameron, you want to hand people off to or plug at the end?
No, I mean, touching on that, yeah, so I'm here to inspire and motivate. I'm part of the 0.001%, but I want you guys to know, if you want to study, if you want to put the time in, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. I'm living proof of it. So, guys, just keep pushing. I know that some of you guys might be going through a hard time. Some of you guys might be going through a great time. But again, remember the highs, erase the lows, make every day better than yesterday. And that's how I want to leave it. Make every day better than yesterday at every point in your life, not just financial.
Awesome, Cameron. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think people get a lot of value out of this conversation, and I appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to leave a review. I may even give you a shout out and read yours out on the show. For any and all resources that we discussed, check out the show notes or head on over to boundtoberich.com. Until next time.